What is going on, guys? Today we're going to be talking about the Zelda gameplay that we saw today at E3, all day at E3. But before I begin this video, I just want to say that the reason I haven't been uploading the past few days is because, of course, it would happen to me that as soon as I move into the new place, my monitor for my main system died. So I've been having to just use my laptop for all of my work and recording videos in this case, because I really wanted to catch up on rejuvenation after like a week, but it doesn't look like I'll be able to until I pick out a new monitor. But moving on from that, today was the big day, the Nintendo conference, and I don't even think Nintendo's done yet at the time I'm recording this, but I think I've seen enough to get the gist of what the new Zelda is gonna be like. And I mean, they're playing it all day. I don't know what the hell they're gonna cover because they are not allowed to go into story or main dungeons. So I guess they're just padding out the entire thing. I mean, they spent an entire section talking about motherfucking amiibos. But I'm not going to talk about like the format of their conference, which I thought needed a lot of work, like showing off more than one game for starters. But I want to talk about exactly what we saw from the gameplay, and I want to talk about what I really liked and some things that are just kind of remain from previous Zeldas that I don't like as much. So first things first, I really enjoy the art style of the game. It's like a mix between the fully cel-shaded Wind Waker and, I mean, it kind of looks like Skyward Sword, to be honest, just better. I mean, as good as it could look for a game on the Wii U. The system is not really known for putting up groundbreaking visual displays and effects. And it really looks like in this game they were going for the whole survival-esque, discovery, exploration-esque game, which is really a breath of fresh air, no pun intended, from the very linear stories we've gotten in the past. And it really is a callback to the old NES games where you just wandered around. If you ran into something you weren't prepared for, well then, a good game. And a ton of exploration. The map is really wide. Even the small area they covered was very large. Apparently, I do not quote me on this, but I heard somewhere that this map is supposed to be about 12 times the size of Twilight Princess. Now, granted, Twilight Princess was not that big, but 12 times that's pretty big. That's reaching to like Bethesda levels of big. Now, the only question I have following up that that attribute of the game is, what is it going to be filled with? One thing I kind of noticed from what they were showing in the gameplay is that it's a big world, but it looks kind of empty. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I was pretty underwhelmed with what I saw as they were just running around. Now, it could just be that the hosts were not really that competent at the game. I mean, no offense to them. They probably, they were doing the best they can with a game they just got. And it was very clear that they had like a script of things to do that they had pre-planned. But even with that, I hope that that when the game comes out, there'll be more things in the overworld. And really, this is a problem that other Zeldas have had too, where the overworlds are just vast, empty wastelands of nothing. And now that we have the biggest Zelda game ever, I hope that they fix this problem. And I hope that what we saw today was just for the purposes of the demo and not really spoiling anything, and that's why they had to take a lot of things out from the mainland. Because again, they couldn't show anything related to the story or the main dungeon. They showed like these things called shrines. That's all they showed. Another thing is that they're really upping their game in terms of the RPG elements in this game. Like it's at some points, it really did remind me of games like The Witcher or even Elder Scrolls to an extent. And you can customize the entirety of how Link looks. And speaking of Link, like, he looks really good in this game. I love his design. It's like a harken back to how he looked in the old Zeldas, where his hair wasn't completely blonde. It's like longer. This is probably the best looking Link since, I'd say, like Twilight Princess Link, and even then that's a completely different art style, so I can't really compare the two and say which one I like more. Although I will say I like this one more. I like this Link the best, because it's basically just a 3D adaptation of what Link looked like in the 80s and 90s. So you can customize the entirety of how he looks, and it seems to me that certain clothing will will give you beneficial effects in certain environments, like in the snowy areas you actually have to dress sort of warm. You have to dress specifically for that. As well as like your weaponry, like you don't start out the game with an ordinary sword from what it looks like. You have to just gather weapons on your own. And part of that is bringing back the mechanic from Wind Waker where you can pick up the enemies like their weapons. That's really, really cool. And along with that comes like the obligatory system of the weapons wearing out to kind of balance that. But and that's okay. That's probably just for balancing purposes. In a way, it kind of reminded me of Four Swords Adventures, where you don't really... It's not like in traditional Zelda games where you go to the dungeon and get the item, move on to the next dungeon, get that item in a linear fashion. You just find stuff in the overworld. Like you can get... There's like a whole variety of bows you can find in the overworld. And you just pick them up and you find them. And there's your bow. You don't have to like complete a certain part of the story to get access to certain items. So really, it is kind of like an Elder Scrolls game from what I'm seeing, that you can just go exploring and get different equipment to explore without having to do any of like the main storyline at all. Which really begs the question of how the side quests are going to be in this game. I expect them to be top-notch, the best since Majora's Mask. And along to complement this theme of you can explore anywhere in the world, one thing I really love that they implemented is that you can climb over shit. Over walls, over mountains, as long as your stamina allows for that, and I'll touch on that right after this. Because I know in like other open world games and other Zelda games, as a matter of fact, things that were high up or walls just blocked you and they limited you. And it's gonna be so satisfying to be able to literally climb over walls that you couldn't in previous Zelda games and just keep fucking going. It really does feel like it's a game that doesn't restrict you on where you can go based on your story progress, and that they did a good job there. I feel like they definitely gives you like the Zelda 1 vibe, like The Legend of Zelda for NES, that kind of vibe, where you just explore, find hidden caves, do all of that, mixed in with the Wind Waker system of having you use different weapons. However, I feel like that's kind of counterintuitive with something they brought back from Skyward Sword that everybody hated, which was the stamina meter. It's just, why? And more so, like, it affects... The stamina meter affects how, when you're climbing, so in a way there is sort of a hard cap on exactly how far you can climb up before your stamina meter runs out, and you fall. So I feel like even though that's probably another balancing mechanic to make it so that you can't just do... I'm starting to think more on that. I don't know what the stamina meter serves. It's not like the game is super difficult and that's like something to complement the difficulty. It's not Dark Souls, it's freaking Zelda. And from what I saw in the gameplay footage from basically all the enemies they faced, save for the Guardians, which are meant to be difficult, none of this is all pretty standard Zelda fare in terms of the combat. They have like one or two little neat things like the slow-mo thing, which really that just makes it even easier. So I don't know what purpose the stamina meter serves other than to be an inconvenience and to ironically put a limit to how far like you can climb, despite the fact that the whole goal of this game, the premise that they ran with from what it looks like, is that you can explore anything. But nope, the stamina meter is going to continue to hinder you on that aspect. And now that I'm on the things that kind of bothered me about what I saw, is that even though they explored only one area, which was like the Great Plateau or Plains or whatever, is the fucking bokoblins. You know what I'm talking about, those little fucking goblin pieces of shit that are everywhere in Zelda games. I think they're probably... Man, I could make an entire video on why bokoblins are the worst thing to happen to Zelda. And I'm really afraid they're gonna go the Skyward Sword route where like 80% of the enemies are bokoblins. That really bothered me in Skyward Sword. Like, you can't even imagine. And and it's not like bokoblins have been something that have always existed. Bokoblins debuted in Wind Waker. That's a fairly recent game. Well, no, that's not true. It's been like it's been like a good over 10 years or something like that. I just say that. But relative to how long Zelda's been around, Bokoblins are not something that debuted with Zelda. They weren't in Ocarina of Time, they weren't in Majora's Mask, and honestly, both of those games were better for it. It just seems like when you have an enemy that can just be placed anywhere, and that's a common enemy, it's honestly just sort of, it facilitates lazy mapping, where you can just, where the designers can just say, well, okay, we have this big empty world, we gotta fill it with enemies, so instead of having to take the time to fill the map with a variety of monsters in very specific places, we can just fill the entire area with Bokoblins, because that's just easier. It seems like the Bokoblins are the ultimate convenience for the designers of the game. Okay, just to give you like some perspective, the most common enemy in Ocarina of Time was the Stalfos. Do you know how many times Stalfos appeared? At least in the original game, not Master Quest. There were only 16 Stalfos, and they were the most common enemies. Now, there are probably well over 100 Bokoblins in Wind Waker, and Twilight Princess had a little bit less of that, because at least there was like a distinction between like the green goblins and the actual Bokoblins, but that still didn't help. There were way too many of them and not enough new unique enemies. And then Skyward Sword just exacerbated that issue to even to unprecedented heights. I would not be surprised if there are well over 400 Bokoblins in that game, if you count like the mob from the very end. That world is literally littered with nothing but Bokoblins. And sure, you can say in that game there's different types, but they're still the same enemy. For fuck's sake, the Fire Sanctuary, which is supposed to be, you know, a fire dungeon, had mostly Bokoblins. At that point, it's kind of where I decided that Skyward Sword, despite some things that I really liked about that game, and by no means is it a bad game, but it's probably my least favorite Zelda. Bar, like, not counting CDI, of course, like those games are a joke. So just seeing nothing but Bokoblins during this like gameplay demo, it really disappointed me, and it more so worried me than disappointed me, because you have this game with where they've gone in depth with the RPG mechanics. They have this huge open world, potential for a great story with like all the Sheikah stuff, and Ganon is pretty much all but confirmed because an NPC mentions him. And you could ruin it with just lazy enemy design or lazy mapping, which is facilitated by Bokoblins. It's really worrying, because in Skyward Sword I just felt like no matter what area I went to, I could expect more or less the same thing for 90% of it. And I was hoping that this was the game where they corrected that issue, where they had little to no Bokoblins at all. But okay, maybe it's too early for me to judge, because they were only in one area, and if there was any area where it would make sense for the Bokoblins to appear, it was that one. But I better not fucking see them in any other area, alright? Mark my words. So you already know I'm definitely looking forward to just messing around in this game and exploring and maybe taking on enemies that I'm not exactly the most prepared for, because it really is. You do basically all the equipment you get is basically makeshift. Like, you can use planks as a shield, which is something the Bokoblins use. You can tame wild horses. I thought that was really neat. We're not just limited to Epona. And it kind of begs the question if we can do that with other animals, because you could do that in Twilight Princess. You could ride the boars. I really hope maybe we get like 2 or 3 animals in total that we can ride and tame like that, domesticate, if you will. You can make campfires, chop down trees. Oh yeah, which brings me to another thing I loved, is from what it looks like, from what I understood, they have eliminated the system where you can just randomly find hearts in the grass. And instead of that, you have to eat food to regenerate health, which you can use like tools like the woodcutter's axe to find around the world. Basically, just use your resources to survive. That, I think, was a really neat touch to make the game a tad bit more immersive and not just have like the... I feel like the hearts in the grass were just sort of a crutch for unprepared players, where like... Because in older Zelda games, especially like the more recent ones, like the 3D titles, you could really just run through the entire game without bothering to be prepared in terms of items, and just use the hearts and pots in the grass as a crutch. And that's one thing I liked about Hero Mode in Skyward Sword, is that it eliminated that. But it looks like that's going to be part of the normal gameplay in this game, which I feel really complements the idea of being able to freely explore and take your own risks at your own leisure. So it's definitely a game that's going to reward players who play well and prepare well, and punish those who don't. And even if the game is not Dark Souls overall, I don't expect it to be, but that is going to be very satisfying as a gamer to me, as someone who's looking for a more intuitive experience out of their Zelda. So that's pretty much all I have to say about what we saw today at E3. And if you're wondering about the gameplay in the background, that is my Twilight Princess Let's Play from a little while ago, where I did 3 hearts and no shield. You should definitely check it out, although the videos are lengthy because they were meant to test my endurance with gaming and commentating in case I want to do streams in the future. But definitely go check that out. And I think that's pretty much all I have to say about Zelda. If you were at the stream or watching the stream and you have your own thoughts, go ahead and leave them down below. Don't forget to like and sub, and I will see you guys next time.